everyone. Welcome back to Mama Genius Hub podcast. I'm about to bring up Justine. We're going to be talking about reclaiming your voice. She has such a way of bringing us into it to discover what is it inside of us that we actually even want to get out or how to even get that out. So we're going to bring her on in just a moment. I'm so excited for this one. Oh, no, I'm not going to do that again. Welcome to Mama Genius Hub podcast, where we support moms with big dreams, from entrepreneurship to personal aspirations. I'm your host, Michelle DeKaiser, and I'm here to help you unlock your potential in all areas of life. Join us as we explore strategies for thriving in motherhood while pursuing the dreams, the key to actually unlocking your genius. Subscribe now and embark on a journey to realize your fullest potential. I didn't remove myself. So Justine Reiss is a voiceover artist, coach, podcaster, author, and speaker of 20 years of experience. She empowers individuals to find their authentic voice and build confidence. Don't we need all that? She is also a breast cancer survivor, meditation instructor, and humanitarian. We just got back from Tanzania together. We got to know each other very well. She advocates for creative freedom and living boldly without waiting for someday, because we always do that. Welcome to the stage, Justine. We're so happy to have you today. Woo-hoo!
Thank you very much, Michelle. It is my pleasure to be here with you.
We know each other so well. We actually even got to spend the day together recently, just getting to know each other better, working in the atmosphere and going to a women's conference together as well. And so there's so much goodness that I know Justine can offer to the audience, to each of you today, and mamas. She's a mama of two as well, grown kids, but I guess I got to spend the 2 weeks with them as well in Tanzania, getting to know them, seeing their skills and documenting everything that we were doing. And so I'm so inspired to have her on today. And so I'm just going to jump in like I always do, Justine. So I'm taking you right in. I want to know your why behind wanting people to reclaim their voice.
Just knowing that you were going to ask me that made me have to sort of take a breath and recalibrate. Why is this so important? As a voiceover talent, I think, who navigated through all these different things that I wanted to do this thing. I was an actress that found voiceover to be a very freeing way of expressing myself because I got to do it behind a microphone. And in Hollywood, you have that, there's this very there's a superficial layer that goes over, what is hired in the entertainment industry and fitting into certain molds. And I think when we're younger and we don't have a good sense of ourselves, it's very easy to try and sort of fit into a mold. And this acting industry is like literally established that way. What stereotype are you? Are you an ingenue? Are you the best friend? Are you the, can I say this, bitchy, the bitchy stepsister? Are you the mean girl? Like all these things, right? So I think one of the things that's freeing about acting is you get to step into all these different personalities. But when you're trying to get a job, you are trying to figure out, well, where do I fit? At the same time, if you are like most people, we don't even know where we fit in life. And if you're trying to do that, be a young up and coming person, forget actor or trying to find whatever your passion is, and then you become a mom. Well, all of these things sort of collide. And I think it was really the moment of that. Like when I moved out to LA, I knew somebody who was doing voiceover and I was so intrigued by it. So I immediately started taking like animation workshops and learning how to express myself. But I think over time, I learned that for me, like getting into commercial work was a little easier. So that's what I did. And I made money at it and all of these things. And it was actually going really well. And then I got pregnant. And I even remembering like so many things are coming back to me because I was a little bit, I don't know if I got this from my mother, but I advise anybody out there, anything you want to do, whatever way you can find out more about it, to go and learn from somebody who's already doing it. So basically the idea of mentorship. And I don't think I was thinking about it like that. But one of the things that occurred to me is, hey, if I want to learn more about being a voice actor in LA, why don't I go knock on the casting office door and say, hey, can I get a job here? And that's what I did. And it's kind of funny looking back on that because some of the people that I met there are still some of my dearest friends and confidants, and they're still on the other side of the glass. I was there to sort of go, okay, if I want to learn about being a voice actor, why do voice actors get hired? And I put myself right in the booth to run the soundboard and give advice to those walking in. So I was coaching even before I was uh, learning how to get jobs. But what I was teaching myself was how to get jobs. And then when women wouldn't show up for their auditions, I would step in and I started booking jobs. Now, what does that have to do with reclaiming your voice? Well, I think when I look back on that whole journey, it helped me, it built my confidence. And one of the things is when we can learn to use our voices with power, which voiceover teaches us to do because we're learning how to bring emotion down to words, we can just come into any conversation more confidently. And when we become mothers, we often naturally, I mean, this is where it's just built this way. We have to kind of lose ourselves in the motherhood, in the growth of somebody else. It happens in our bodies, literally, right? We're building a human being, which I still think is like scientific magic and all the things. And if you don't believe in a higher power, I don't know how you couldn't after you do that, right? Um, but that's where it gets really tricky because then you can really just get lost. And even if I think at some point, like I had a lot of confidence when I was in those early years and I made good money, but then I became a mom and it was like, well, how do I give to you, give my voice to you, give my, and still keep a sense of who I am. And I've heard lots of conversations at this whole Mama Genius Festival, which is literally genius that you put this together to give women a space to have these conversations and talk about this because I think what our mothers never could claim or reclaim because it was like this was going on, but nobody was talking about it. It was just sort of an expectation like, well, this is just what you do.
Well,
And yeah,
it's funny you say that because Zamasa, who was on earlier on the podcast,
yeah,
she's from South Africa, and
yeah.
she was asking her mom about postpartum. Like, did she ever experience that? And she's like, we didn't have that.
We didn't have that. Yeah. What are you talking about? And I think they had it. They just didn't allow themselves to feel it because it was like, this
Or
is
talk
what you
about it.
do, ignore that.
Yeah,
So
you just ignore it or don't talk about it.
we get really good at pushing our feelings down and that becomes the norm. Like, I'm just going to ignore that. So it's a constant bypass of what you're actually feeling just to get the next job done, get the next meal on the table, drive to the next swim meet, soccer meet, whatever it is. That you're in the middle of it. I have had a little distance from it now and, got to really sort of, I'll just fast forward because it doesn't really matter what happened from, being in the casting office, but I got lost in my motherhood and I fully enjoyed it. And I was never someone who didn't work, but I found some jobs that allowed me to have a lot of freedom in my work life. And that is one thing that voiceover really can do now. And I think what's brought me to this whole idea of reclaiming is because what I do now is, aside from recording audiobooks and still doing actual voiceover, I help other people start their voiceover careers. And a lot of times people come into my Zoom room or my coaching session and they're women, especially, I hear it over and over. I want to find my voice again. I
Mhm.
want to reclaim this is what I started. So I'm like, well, this is a thing. And then when you and I went to Tanzania, I found something kind of different. I found the women there to really know themselves in a different way, especially the entrepreneurial women that we met.
Yeah.
They're all moms, they're all in the struggle, but they were all having this like support around each other that seemed something deeper than we know here. And part of it might be because the village mentality. Literally, we're in like a little village, right? We're in a little village of Boma. Most of those women probably didn't travel too far to get there that day. You and I, like right now, we're what, an hour and a half apart from each other. This is the closest that we would normally be. And we did actually get to connect. And I think that's the beauty of when we can start like making this. We had COVID, that was this distancing, but then it was also this connecting way that we can find each other and come together. And so it just seems like this natural evolution to try and make a difference with our voices in community and then have this global impact of purpose, which is what I think we're all kind of searching for. If I feel like this rat race has a bigger meaning, then I don't have to feel like I'm in a rat race, but I'm kind of doing it with all of other women or other people. And that's making a difference. And we know it is. We've already
Well,
had tangible things happen. Yeah.
I think what you're saying though, like in terms of like we lost some of that connection along the way, and like because of that village mentality that we saw in Tanzania, we can see that it still exists and it's something in us that we've been yearning for. And I think part of how you're going to tell us how we're going to reclaim our voice and get back to that will help us. But we'll be back in a minute just to do that.
Okay.
Attention mompreneurs. Do you feel like you're constantly juggling the responsibilities without a moment to yourself? It's time to pause and reflect with our Mama Genius quiz. Tailored for busy mamas like you, this quiz will help you identify what's blocking your path and inspire you to harness your unique strengths. Transform how you manage life and business, find your rhythm, and ignite your joy. Visit mamageniushub.com today to discover your Mama Genius. And that's mamageniushub.com. And so I really want to take some time to really just dive into how do you suggest for women to really like, they're lost in motherhood, they're feeling like they can't express themselves, they don't even know what their desires anymore. How do we reclaim that voice?
It's interesting. I recently just kind of reworked how I'm going to do this because you came into like my first Reclaim Your Voice workshop. And I thought the way I wanted to do it was look at where our magic was, which I still want to do. Where did you feel like if everyone that's listening right now could just give a thought to this, and then this is something you can give a little more thought to later on your own. But was there a time in your life that you felt uninhibited? Usually it's like 7, 8, 9 years old, honestly, where you didn't feel any inhibition about what you wanted to do, say, whether it was, dancing around the living room, maybe you loved math, like everyone's got their thing. Mine was sort of gregarious. I used to record interviews with people in the house, and I really just loved being creative and dancing, even though I didn't take formal dance lessons at that time. But I just had this kind of performance, like wild imagination, and I liked to express myself in kind of fun, imaginative, wild ways. So I think it's important to identify when that was and what that was. And like there was someone in our group that day that talked about, oh, I used to sing, be all the Spice Girls. So we have these things in us and then we forget about them. So taking a moment, and this is what I would do through meditation to really meditate on. But what my teacher, Justin Michael Williams, reminded me of on a retreat this last week is ultimately we're going through a process. My process I thought was, what's my magic voice? Where did it feel shut down? That was my step 2 to go back. And I have this funny story where I wrote a story in 4th grade called The Sexy Snowflake. And I thought it was so adorable. The little snowflake was just going to stand on her little tiptoes to kiss her boyfriend, bigger snowflake, just a silly little thing. But that use of that word in the 70s, my teacher really shut it down, Mrs. Fleer, and I still look at her as like my inner critic. She's got the horn rim glasses. And so
Well, it was funny when I was doing that activity with you. I think I misheard or something, and I went straight to the negative. Like that's where I feel like my past. Like I always just go straight, and I could picture myself in front of the room, and I had kids in the back of the room because I was actually in a very Hispanic. I went to Catholic school, so I was in a very Hispanic room,
yeah.
and I was one of the few white girls. And so as soon as I gave a presentation, you'd hear a cherry bomb noise in the back, and I could feel my whole face just flushing. And like anytime I get a presentation, I'd like be like, I can't do this. Like I get so embarrassed. But that was where I went first. Like it was struggling for me to find the inhibited, like where I was not showing my and that was a struggle for me. I mean, I did go back a little bit further and could see myself more outside in nature and making mud pies or doing some of building forts or that type of thing. But it took a while to be able
Get
to
there.
even do that.
So what Justin brought back to mind, because the process and I work with him on the Dream Bigger meditation, which I got to do with the women in Tanzania. And his suggestion was start with that. So now what I feel is the dream bigger meditation and the dream bigger concept is to vision what we want in the future. So if I'm standing here right now and I want to do TED Talks and I want to, be on bigger stages than I am right now, that vision can seem so far away that I can't even picture what to do next to get there. And so his thought is start there because what we do is we want to create from the future. So instead, if I have a diagram and like I'm here and my vision's over here, usually what we do is it's like, oh, that's too far away. I'm not even going to do it. Goodbye. But the concept is I'm here in the future on this TED stage. What did I do here to get here? And when we reverse engineer that way, I can go back and go, what did I do today? Oh, I got on a podcast with Michelle talking about my vision and talking about reclaiming your voice. That was one step to get me to create content and get me closer to the TED Talk stage. So that's the concept. So the idea I think that I'm switching now is start with the vision, then go back and go, where was the magical voice? Where was the shutdown? Which is basically the light, the shadow to the action. Because if I can do that, then I'm not, and this is not something that's going to happen in an hour. This is why Reclaim Your Voice is a workshop or something that we can work on and continue to develop. But we'll get closer and closer. And then you can have action partners and accountability partners. But if we ignore the shadow, if you ignore that moment where you got on stage and heard the sound in the back, if you bypass that, what can happen is that shadow, that person that fears getting on stage is what's making all the choices and not allowing us for growth. So it'll start, that's what true shadow is. It's when that darker moment is running the show, kind of making choices for us. So we have to look at it. It's not necessarily trauma work, that's different. And yes, if you need outside help, if your shadow is so deep and dark, get outside help. I'm not a therapist. But in this process, it's just good to look at. And it's his theory is light, that I truly believe this light, shadow, action equals transformation through meditation. I'm a big believer in meditation. So when we can kind of get that vision in our head, when we sit in meditation, we can kind of think about the vision. And then there's all kinds of systems, words that help us get there. Like if you notice when I did this very brief dream bigger meditation with the women in Tanzania, they had big dreams for their businesses. And I just encourage them to come up with a word that is the energy of what you want to create. So like for me, the energy, one thing I'm working with right now is playful organization. I have realized that in my life, other people have organized my life for me. I was married for 28 years to a man who was very organized. So I kind of let him be the organizer. And when I was growing up, it wasn't my mom, but we had help in the house and I kind of let them be the organizer. So I'm having to learn how to enjoy being organized and not look at it like, I don't want to do that. And so that's kind of my thing. But for some people, it could be anything. It could be the return to gratitude. I mean, all the things. It's always good to return to gratitude.
Well, I agree with that. And I think a lot of times that we ignore the shadow thinking it will go away.
Yeah.
And it's not even about good and we say like the light's good and the shadow is bad. And that's not even that's the case, is that we have to acknowledge all our parts.
Right.
And see what we need to work on, see what comes out. And sometimes the shadow is there to give us those lessons we need because we're looking at them and what's going to propel us forward. And just like they're always like, well, my kids are always asking, why is it the bad guy in the movie? I'm like, well, you're not going to notice what the good guy is doing if their bad guy isn't there.
That's right.
Like it would just be some happy-go-lucky story that no one's even interested in, right? But that's the same true with ourselves, that we are so complex in who we are. And to, like you're saying, to like really reclaim the voice, we have to look at all the aspects to release some of that, to see what is that voice down below.
That's it. That's
and
it.
where that comes from. And I love that because that's what this is all about is that
Yeah.
you use the word voice, I use the word genius, but it's really that unlocking that inner person of who that magicalness that each of us has. It needs to
Yeah.
come out into this world and
Yeah.
share that with each other, because that's what this is about. That's why this festival is here, why we're having this conversation, because it's each of our geniuses coming out, even though we're looking at the shadow, even though we have those moments, even though I have that cherry bomb moment in the back right now going, okay, I can't do this, but do I let that stop me, or do I acknowledge that and say, yep, you did that then, but you're not going to do that now?
That's right.
And what can I can learn from that?
How can it propel me forward? The bigger the light, the bigger the shadow. When the bigger the shadow it's gonna cast. So, it's all important, and it's just that same thing like, "Well, my mom said we didn't have that." It's like, "Yeah, you did, you just didn't know how to you didn't know, you didn't have the tools to look at it." So, this is about getting tools that are safe so we don't get so scared of our shadow that we're just like, and stuff's going to come up. I mean, I found a photograph, which I'm not even going to get into, but I found a photograph of myself at 9 years old when I was in my parents' house just a few weeks ago that was proof that things that I thought in my head actually happened. And it was triggering, but it was also like, okay, done with that, you know? But in order to be done with it, I have to kind of look at it.
Okay,
And
I have to really laugh right now because usually my cat doesn't come here, but my cat is actually a black cat named Shadow, and he walked in right now.
I
He's
I
over there by
totally
the bed. I
believe in
won't pick him up because he hates being picked up, but it is.
I totally believe in that stuff, yeah. And,
Hi,
this
Shadow.
is where I love all the I'm very much I really kind of have learned to embrace more like woo woo, what we consider woo woo stuff, but I also love the science of it. I love the science of it. I love that we can look at the fact that we are energy, we are water, and our thoughts. This is a big thing
Oh
about the
my gosh, she
voice.
let me pick him up.
Hi, Shadow. I miss my cat. My cat's name's Monty. It's not as
See, we always have to acknowledge a shadow. I'm just thinking of him as a cute
yeah, that's a
purple
good
cat.
reminder. And cats love this work, I find. So I think if anything to pull from this, is to just open your mind and your heart to look at all these things because ultimately what works when we're speaking, both in conversation on stage and in voiceover, is the connection of our heart to our words. And if we can open up that cycle, and even when it's difficult, what's nice in a voiceover or in an acting role is when you see someone be vulnerable and you can hear it in their voice, but also the confidence this can build both for our kids and for ourselves when we can speak, in job interviews and wherever we go with confidence. So even if you don't want to be a speaker, these are such valuable tools to unlock um, our confidence, really.
Well, in all fairness, we are always speakers because we're always speaking to someone. And so it's no matter it's how much vulnerability, how much openness can we have with another human being.
Yeah.
And that only happens when we start to unlock what is in here. And you don't necessarily need to be a speaker in front of other people. It's just even that one-on-one. And how do you learn to give that person your full undivided attention? And that could be your kid in front of you who needs you,
Yes.
having that conversation. But on that note, I'm going to ask you our final question of the day, which is, what is a common misconception about motherhood that you think holds many moms back from truly stepping into their genius?
What is a common misconception about motherhood? I think the common misconception is that we are in control of the destiny of our children
Mm,
versus allowing them to see how we can grow as people and giving them the gift of their own experience, even through failure, to have their own experience of growth by ex- experiencing our growth. So if I could distill that down,
yeah, I was
um,
gonna say, how do we shift that into a mindset? Like, so how do
the
we re?
mindset is this is a good quote I heard, I think from Lisa Lamont maybe, "Help is the sunny side of control." So when we want to help our kids ace that test, finish their science project, get their homework done when they don't want to or whatever, get up in the morning, and we rob them of the lesson that they're going to learn by maybe failing or not doing something. Are we really helping them? Are we controlling the outcome? So, and that might be a good moment to go, what am I doing? How am I finishing my projects? And the only way I can express that I know that this works is because my own children who, after going through a divorce, I feared would feel, not full, not loved. But when I got out of like worrying about them and put the focus on spreading my wings and letting myself fly and helping them do what I just talked about, stand in your vision, I can't believe what they're doing. My 24-year-old just got a job working as a graphic artist at a record label. That was his dream, he said a year ago. And he took those little steps. He didn't think it could happen. He was like, "How am I going to do that? I don't know anyone in this industry. I haven't graduated yet. Da 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 da. All these things." He took the classes. He stayed. He did the little actions without even realizing it. And so I really believe it. I think it's proof of concept that we can help them find their vision, but then they have to find the path there.
So can you tell everyone how they can get a hold of you and if you have a free gift for us?
Yes, I would love to expand on this with both private coaching and group coaching. Justine Reiss, VO at Gmail is my email. And my website right now is Justine Reiss Voices. You can also find me on LinkedIn, and there will be a free gift of Igniting Your Voice with More Power, which is a 3-part course, I think, that I will be able to gift you. And I really am committed to how we can work together. And I'm starting to put some retreats together, some live stuff, and some workshops together. Well, there's one going on right now, and I'll get a link for that too. That we're running an education series on every Thursday through this month, October, and I'll have some more coming up in November and December. So
Awesome. We're going to take you off stage for just a moment. I give my 5 takeaways from today's talk, and then we'll bring you back for one final takeaway. All right. Wasn't that amazing how we get inside to our inner voice, but really how do we unlock it, right? So really, the one thing that the first takeaway they talked about was she brought up the idea of mentorship, that she at first didn't even know what it was, but then to really find someone who is doing what you want to do and learn from them. However, that works for me with one-on-one with that person, taking someone's course, whatever that means for you, but see someone who's doing what you're already doing and learn from that person, not from people who aren't doing it. And then we go to takeaway number 2 is really learning to connect with that voice. Having more powerful, learning what that voice is. I think we even kind of touched on that at the end, is you're a speaker no matter what, because whenever you're talking to someone in front of you, that makes you a speaker. What kind of confidence, what kind of conversation do you want to have with your spouse in front of you? What kind of conversation do you want to have with your kids? All of that can be learned when you're doing the inner work. And so how did she tell us to do the inner work? Well, she gave us a couple different parts. First part for takeaway number 3 is where did you actually to reverse that? So where was that big picture? Start to look at where do you want to be in the future and to really paint that picture of it. And then we work backwards with takeaway number 4 of finding out where did you first feel that aliveness and start to feel that vision of what you're doing. And then we talked a lot about takeaway number 5, which is the shadow. Not to ignore it, but to acknowledge it. And we even brought Shadow up for a moment because he's such a cutie and happened to walk in the room at the exact right time because it wasn't a coincidence, because the magic happens when we place acknowledgement in the shadow. So picture him as that cute little cat that is your lesson to what you need to do. Not that it's your bad parts or this negative thing. It's not right or wrong. It's your lessons to what you want to become. And that just brings us to having that open mind so that we're looking at our hearts more and being able to talk from the heart, because ultimately that is the key to connection, is that heart-to-heart conversation, removing the brain, removing the shadows, removing all of that from it, and just speaking and having those deep connections. So we're going to bring Justine back for her final takeaway.
My final takeaway. Well, I think I really do believe that it's through stillness that we find most of this. And it is very hard to find when you're a mom. And, but I've also noticed like I'm here without my kids. We can almost get into that mindset all the time of do, 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 do. So I think my biggest takeaway is slow down, find a way to add some stillness into your life, to let these visions come to you. That is the key. And if it doesn't have, if you can't make time for it in the morning, that's okay. That doesn't mean it doesn't have to happen. If it's 5 minutes, if it means getting up 15 minutes earlier or whatever the case may be, don't give up on yourself if it doesn't happen the way you think it should, because you can reset at any point during the day. And if that means 5 breaths, ideally, I think 12 minutes is great. So always give yourself a chance for a reset.
I love that so much. You just inspired me to rename something Mama Reset, because we can reset any moment of the day. And actually that's going to be coming at you very soon into a free group with all kinds of ideas. So something to stay tuned for soon. And actually by the time you're listening to this, who knows, it might already be out. So stay tuned for that. And thank you so much, Justine, for joining us. And I just want everyone to be inspired, living in their genius, unlocking their inner voice.
Yeah.
And we'll see you on the next episode. Thank you for joining us in today's episode of the Mama Genius Hub podcast. If you found value in our conversation, please share this episode with another mama who might benefit. Sharing helps us build a supportive community and reach out to more mamas like you. After all, it's more fun when we do motherhood together. Until next time, stay motivated and continue to pursue your dreams as you shine in your genius.